All right, everyone, it's 12:01. I'm going to get started because so many people are on time and ready to learn. It's time to get started. Welcome to today's webinar, the Illinois Energy Stretch Code Training. My name is Katie Kaluzny. I'm the Deputy Director at Illinois Green Alliance, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today and our partners at the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance to learn more about the current status of the Illinois Stretch Code. Everyone has been muted upon entry to the webinar, but we have a Q&A session at the end of this program. So please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A. Try to keep them out of the chat and save them for the Q&A so that we can have all those questions ready to answer here at the end of today's presentation. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a little bit about Illinois Green Alliance for those that may not be familiar. For those of you joining the first time, Illinois Green Alliance is a membership-driven nonprofit organization that advances sustainability in the built environment to ensure a greener and healthier communities across the state. Through our collaborative initiatives, innovative programming, and advocacy efforts, we've amplified the voice of our green building community to position Illinois as a leader in sustainable building practices. Our members represent every sector of the building industry, from architects and engineers to owners and construction professionals. You can learn more about membership, check out our upcoming events, and learn how to get involved by visiting our website, which will be in the chat shortly. Before we get started, I just want to share, thank our incredible sponsors for their commitment to our mission. A special thank you to our gold level sponsors, ComEd, USGBC, and Sloan. And thank you to all of our supporters throughout the year to help us put on these great education programs. If you and your organization are interested in helping us advance our mission for a net zero future in Illinois, you can visit our sponsorship page to learn more about that. Next slide. And now we're going to get into it. We have some excellent speakers here today to talk to you about the Illinois Stretch Energy Code, what's going on with it today and what's going on with it in the future. And we have tons of attendees that are interested. So I'm so excited to see all of the folks and some familiar faces in the attendee list today. We have two great speakers from the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance that have been following the stretch code closely in Illinois and are here to tell you all about it. First up, we have John Gossman. John is the technical manager at the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. He stays closely connected to innovation, tracking pilot projects, emerging technology, and training programs that are transforming how we integrate energy efficiency into both new construction and existing buildings. With a background that combines hands-on construction experience and in-depth knowledge of building energy codes and building technologies, John enjoys turning complex technical challenges into practical and impactful solutions. And John is joined today by Zoya Ehsan. Zoya is an associate at the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance Building Codes and Policy team. She supports municipal, state, and tribal leaders with the technical support they need to advance their building decarbonization goals. She holds a BS in Public Affairs with a focus in environmental management from Indiana University. And her interests beyond energy codes include transit-oriented development, mobility justice, and green affordable housing. Remember, we have our Q&A open at the end of today's session, so please add your questions in the Q&A and we'll address them at the end. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to John and Zoya to take us through their code training today. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Katie. So yeah, we will pull up our slides now.
Looks perfect.
Hi everyone, I'm Zoya. As you heard from Katie, I am gonna just take us right into our stretch code training today. So just to go through our agenda for today, I will walk us through some of the background on this project and introduce you to some of our partners. We'll do kind of a quick Energy Codes 101, what is a building code, what is an energy code, what is a stretch code. We'll talk about energy codes' impact on development and talk about costs and savings and resources to build to the stretch code. And then John will take us through a deep dive into the actual requirements of the stretch code. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. So one of our partners on this project is Slipstream. They are a nonprofit with a mission to accelerate climate solutions for everyone. They work to meet their mission through a research group that conducts field studies and other analyses to understand the practical applications of decarbonization technologies in buildings. Their research group also explores policy and planning solutions to support advancement of energy codes and other building policies. They also implement utility-funded energy efficiency programs, provide educational opportunities for building professionals, and offer innovative financing mechanisms for building decarbonization solutions. MEEA, my organization, and John's organization we are a nonprofit membership-based organization with over 170 members that work to advance energy efficiency across 13 states in the Midwest. We help to educate and advise a diverse range of stakeholders and to better understand and implement cost-effective energy efficiency strategies that provide economic, environmental, and public health benefits. We are part of a national network of regional energy efficiency organizations, or RIOs, that work through funded partnerships with the US DOE, and our vision is an achievable pathway for all people and communities in the Midwest to receive the economic, environmental, and societal benefits of energy efficiency. We are able to bring you this training today through funding from ComEd that we use to work with Slipstream and the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus to engage with municipalities and assist them with the adoption and implementation of advanced building policies. We also use this funding to develop utility-funded support programs that help municipalities successfully implement policies and develop savings and attribution methodologies. These are some of the services we can offer through our partnership with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and their Advanced Building Energy Efficiency Policy, or a BEP task force. We help municipalities move forward with the adoption of stretch codes and BPS. We support efforts and offer tools needed to act on other building energy policies, such as benchmarking and BPS. We can assist municipalities in the creation of roadmaps without any expectation of adoption. And we help municipalities collect feedback and guidance on the most effective ways that utilities can support with energy code compliance and implementation. So just to get into kind of the basics of energy code, what is an energy code? An energy code is the minimum standard that dictate the energy efficiency requirements for residential and commercial buildings. They are the floor of requirements, so they basically designate the worst possible building that can legally be built. Codes are primarily developed nationally by two main organizations: the International Code Council, which publishes the International Energy Conservation Code for both residential and commercial buildings, and ASHRAE 90.1, which creates additional commercial standards. Codes go through a rigorous development process with a rigorous stakeholder engagement process, and they're updated every 3 years. The ASHRAE and ICC development cycles are offset by 2 years, so ASHRAE actually comes out first, and then ICC references and uses those standards as they develop the IECC. Finally, codes are adopted in a number of ways. 9 of the states in MEEA's region, including Illinois, adopt one statewide energy code, but we also have states that we call home rule states, which adopt codes at the municipal or jurisdictional level. In the Midwest, that would be Kansas, Missouri, and the Dakotas. But that being said, all states enforce the energy code at the jurisdictional level through code officials. So this chart shows the improvement of model energy codes put out over time. In general, the IECC tends to get more efficient over time. This graph is for the residential code. As you can see, there have been periods of significant efficiency improvements, such as between the 2012 and the 2015, and slowed improvements, such as between the 2012 and the 2018. but the last few cycles have seen more efficiency improvements in the model codes. The 2021 was about 10% more efficient than the 2018 edition, and the 2024 is about 8% more efficient than the 2021, which is exciting. Now, what is a stretch code? A stretch code is a more efficient optional code that a jurisdiction can adopt when they're seeking an alternative compliance path that promotes a higher level of energy efficiency. The stretch code then allows jurisdictions or others, such as utilities or state construction agencies, to implement cutting-edge technologies and processes and demonstrate their feasibility and cost effectiveness. Some jurisdictions use funding requirements and utility incentives to encourage participation in stretch codes, and this all can help gain market acceptance of more energy efficient codes in the future. In this sense, stretch codes may contain aspects that a jurisdiction is considering for their next baseline code adoption, creating a stretch to the next level. Right now, Illinois is the only state in the Midwest that has a specific stretch code, the first of which, the 2023 stretch code, was made available for adoption at the end of last year. Specifically, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or CEJA, directs that the Illinois stretch codes meet certain site energy indexes, and in order to make sure those targets are met, the index only takes into account energy conservation measures rather than, for example, on-site or off-site energy production. The residential 2023 stretch code is based on the 2021 IECC with strengthening amendments, and the commercial stretch code is based on the 2024 IECC with some strengthening amendments to ensure that CEJA site energy indices are met. Notably, stretch codes are not possible in all states. Some states prohibit municipalities from adopting energy code standards that are more stringent than the state code. So a little bit of background on the current energy code landscape in Illinois. The base energy code updates automatically every 3 years in concurrence with the publication of the new IECC. The 2024 IECC is set to be effective statewide next month on December 1st for both residential and commercial buildings. Municipalities do now have the option to adopt the stretch energy code in place of the state-based energy code. Once a municipality adopts the stretch code, then the municipality's energy code is updated to the newest version of the stretch code when the new stretch code comes available. So, for example, if a city has already adopted the 2023 stretch code, then when the 2026 comes out, then their energy code will automatically update to the 2026. Municipalities can pick and choose between adopting either the residential or commercial stretch code, or they can adopt both codes. And if they find that the stretch code is not favorable for their municipalities, they can revert back to the state base code. So there are several financial and technical resources for municipalities looking to adopt the state stretch code. The most notable is the Illinois Climate Bank's Stretch Building Code Grant Program, where municipalities can be awarded up to $200,000, and it is designed to facilitate the adoption, implementation, and enforcement of the Stretch Energy Code. It provides financial support for education, community engagement, and technical assistance, and it aims to streamline the process by offering resources for internal capacity building and public engagement efforts and technical training. These applications are open through the end of the year, December 31st. So if you are a municipality and you want to apply for this grant, now is the time. So through this ComEd funded project, us and Slipstream and MMC, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, can offer several support services to municipalities adopting the stretch code. We can offer compliance guidance, training and education, and plan review assistance for building code officials, We can offer technical guidance and training and education for the design and construction community. And at the jurisdictional and policymaking level, we can assist with stretch code adoption or advancement. This is just an example of one of the resources we have for municipalities. This is basically all your questions answered FAQs document about the stretch code. We also have similar documents that are compliance checklists for plan reviewers and code officials, and comparison documents to help decision makers evaluate which version of the code is best for their community. Okay, so do codes affect development? Often resistance to updating energy codes is attributed to energy codes allegedly deterring development in jurisdictions where there are updated energy codes. There isn't really a clear negative or positive impact of energy code on development that we have seen. In March 2020, MEEA conducted a preliminary analysis that found that energy code adoption has no long-term direct correlation on the number of residential single-family building permits. In 2024, we worked with Slipstream to expand upon this research. This study compared the number of building permits in counties of bordering states to the number of permits in corresponding Illinois border counties over the course of 4 Illinois code updates. We limited our research to single family residential homes and sought to answer the question of how residential construction might be affected by energy codes. We compared the number of residential single family building permits between 2007 and 2022 in Wisconsin, Indiana, Missouri, Kentucky, and Iowa counties bordering Illinois, with the number of permits in corresponding Illinois border counties. This study period spanned 4 Illinois Energy Code updates from 2009 through 2019. And the research sought to quantify the change in permit counts in jurisdictions across state lines that have either weaker or stronger energy codes, and determine if code updates in Illinois correlated to long-term loss of development in Illinois counties. We found that there wasn't really a strong negative or positive impact of energy code adoptions in counties on state lines, suggesting that the adoption of stronger energy codes in Illinois does not cause development to shift into neighboring states, and energy codes likely are not the primary driver of development or a lack thereof. So to dive into kind of the costs of the stretch code, the main cost effectiveness study about covering the cost effectiveness of the Illinois stretch code was published by PNNL last year. This only analyzes the costs for the prescriptive compliance path and does not account for the flexibility of other compliance pathways, such as the performance and ERI pathways, which John will get into a little bit more in detail later. They did find that overall the prescriptive path of the Illinois stretch code was cost effective, and the readiness measures also, which John will get into a little bit later on, are the only definite new added costs. And overall, the benefits of the stretch code far outweigh the one-time cost of adoption. There is a request for an update analysis for the new stretch code and new base code, but overall, the upfront cost of building to the new stretch code is about 2% change. So as you can see, the average new home price in Chicago is about $400,000, and the cost to build to the stretch code is about $3,350. So about 2%. How we determine if The stretch code is cost effective is by evaluating the life cycle cost, which is the present value of costs and savings over 30 years. This includes initial equipment and construction costs, energy savings, maintenance and replacement, and residual value. When the LCC, the life cycle cost of the updated code, is positive, it is considered cost effective. So as you can see, the life cycle total cost savings is about 8,829. So a positive LCC, so the stretch code is cost effective, and the LCC considers both the upfront costs and avoided retrofit costs of readiness measures. Go ahead and pass it on to John to kind of walk us through the actual requirements of the stretch code.
Awesome. Thanks, Zoya. And thank you, Katie, for the introduction at the top. But again, my name is John Gossman, Technical Manager at the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. And we will be getting into the technical aspects of the stretch code. So this table here kind of showing the runway for the next, current edition of the stretch code and the successive versions of the stretch code. So we are on the 2023 stretch code right now. It was implemented the first of this year. And as Zoya mentioned, these are based on site energy index targets. So what that means is a house built on the residential stretch code, 2023 residential stretch code, is going to be about 50% more efficient than the 2006 IECC. So one of the nice things about the stretch code is being able to see these incremental jumps from one version to the next, whereas on the base code, it's a little more uncertain about how much more energy efficient each successive edition is. So the stretch code is advantageous in this way in that it kind of paints a clearer picture of where the energy efficiency metrics are going. So as you'll see, in the second column here, there are some stricken dates. So the original plan was to have the next version of the stretch code wrapped up by this year, but it has all been pushed back a year. So starting next year, the next edition of the stretch code will be available for adopting, and that'll have a 0.40 site energy index, making it 60% more efficient than the 2006 IECC. And you can go to the next slide. So part of the stretch code is these mandatory aspects. So there are some readiness provisions in the stretch code. So these are electric readiness, EV readiness, or having an EV charger fully installed, solar readiness, and then demand response capable thermostats and water heaters. So kind of going through these more detailed. So the electric readiness just requires that conduit and wiring there is a dedicated branch circuit for each of these appliances. So and terminating within 6 feet of these appliances. So whenever a homeowner or a resident wants to change one appliance for another, they have the option of going electric or combustion equipment without having to do major retrofitting. Having the EV readiness in here is almost redundant. Illinois already has a requirement for single family homes to have EV readiness or EV charger installed. But as it stands, there is an EV readiness requirement here. Same with solar readiness. So they're requiring buildings to have a roof that can support a solar system, and again, a dedicated branch circuit for wiring and space in the panel, and then having demand response, electric water heaters, and thermostats. Next slide. So the compliance pathways, so very similar to the base code, except for there is a passive house compliance pathway allowed with the stretch code and a net zero pathway. So those are what we kind of consider the alternative compliance pathways. And then you have the kind of the typical more common pathways with the prescriptive, performance, and the ERI compliance pathway. And we'll get into each of these in a little more detail. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, you hit these 4 readiness measures, and then you choose your compliance path. So yeah, you can advance, Zoya, thank you. And then so once you have these mandatory measures in place, you choose your compliance pathway. And you can go ahead and advance the slide. So the prescriptive pathway, there are kind of different options in the prescriptive pathway. So you can do what is like the tight building envelope and the heat pump package, which is, so you have 2 ACH50, which is a really tight building, and then you have some ventilation in ERV or HRV, and you also have heat pumps for space heating and water heating. So if you do all that, you have met the requirements of the prescriptive pathway. If you would rather have more flexibility with that prescriptive pathway, you can go ahead and choose from the R408 table that has a list of efficiency measures that have points attributed to them. And you pick from that table and you meet that 30 credit requirement by picking from that table. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And we can kind of get into a little bit more of the detail. So as I mentioned, this is the first option I talked about, the heat pump equipment and air tightness option. So it must meet these 3 requirements. So the heating and cooling equipment will be electric heat pump with the following kind of capabilities. The water heater will be a heat pump water heater. And then, as I mentioned, the tight building envelope with a 2 ACH50 with ventilation. Next slide. Here is the R408 table that I had mentioned. So you have to choose measures to at least equal 30 credits. I've highlighted some major ones here. So if you put in a high performance heat pump system, you get, at least in climate zone 5, you get 31 credits. So you do that, you meet the requirements for the stretch code. Alternatively, you can pick, some of these lesser credited measures, and as long as you get to that 30 baseline, then you will have met the requirements of the prescriptive pathway. Next slide. So the performance pathway, it revises the performance pathway from the base code, which measures this in utility cost. And the stretch code actually has the metric of a site energy instead of that utility cost. Next slide. So in this performance-based compliance, you have to meet 3 different criteria. So you have to meet the requirements of this particular table, R405.2, which talks about in detail about HVAC sizing, air leakage, duct insulation, et cetera, more of kind of a list of requirements they must meet. And then the proposed building thermal envelope UA, which is the UA is just a building's overall heat loss through its envelope. So if that shall be less than or equal to the building thermal envelope UA using the prescriptive U factor. So basically, that being said, you use this equation and you have to have at least 90% efficient in your building envelope as the prescriptive method. So in this performance space, you can actually have a less efficient envelope, but then you make up for that with other measures. So the third component to kind of complete this performance pathway is that the proposed design shall be less than or equal to 71% of the site energy use of the standard reference design. So the modeled site energy use must be 29% more efficient than the reference design. Next slide, please. The ERI compliance pathway, again, it's revised these to meet the CJA targets. Next slide. And so you'll see here, there is a bit of incentive for heat pump installation. So there are different ERI scores or HERS scores that are required depending on if you have combustion equipment or not. So you'll see here 50 or 51 HERS score for those with combustion equipment, or 54 or 55 depending on your climate zone for those with heat pumps installed. So there's a bit of incentive to have heat pump installations with the stretch code. Next slide, please. So yeah, these are the alternative compliance pathways that I talked about at the beginning: Passive House Institute, and then the Zero Energy Appendix. Next slide, please. So the FIAS or FEE, the Passive House Institute, is a new compliance pathway with the stretch code. So if you meet the requirements of the Passive House, then you are in compliance with the stretch code. You can check out those sites for more kind of information about what Passive House is. Next slide, please. And for the net zero energy, so again, this is similar to the HERS score. So you get a HERS score of 47, and then you kind of offset that with the required amount of on-site renewable energy, ultimately going to a 0 ERI, meaning that you are now net zero. Next slide, please. So that was a really fast crash course on the residential stretch code. So the commercial stretch code, similar in design. And as Zoya mentioned, the residential is based on the 2021 IECC. The commercial is based on the 2024 IECC. So a lot of similarities with the upcoming Illinois statewide code, statewide base code. So again, based on site energy index metrics and the same kind of timeline for the stretch code to come out. So the next version of the stretch code is in its kind of final phases. So there will be a public comment period I would imagine the next month or so, where different stakeholders can provide input to the stretch code, and the anticipated kind of implementation date for that is fall of next year, and that's subject to change, but I think that is kind of what the current runway looks like right now for the next version of the stretch code to come out. But yeah, similar in design, site energy index increasing over time, with a planned and predictable increase in site and efficiency measure upgrades per new stretch code. So next slide, please. So again, these have the same sort of thing, that there are mandatory measures for each commercial building that is constructed. So they do have renewable energy requirements, energy storage readiness requirements, electric readiness for R2 buildings, and then demand response requirements. And you can go to the next slide, please. So for the mandatory on-site, let me back up here. So these concepts here are taken directly from the 2024 IECC. So as Zoya mentioned, the statewide base code is going to the 2024 IECC December 1st. So we have 2 more weeks of 2021 IECC. So these concepts, these kind of readiness measures are going to be happening no matter what. But these are also in the stretch code, so they're included on this presentation. So there is a renewable energy requirement. So on-site renewable energy must meet 10 to 12% of the building's energy use. And when you are unable to have renewable energy on-site, you are able to procure renewable energy off-site. So yeah, and then the energy storage readiness Again, that's all the same. There is some clarifying language in the stretch code to correct some code references to improve the safety and energy storage requirements. So it's the same requirement, but there is it's some clarifying language in there for safety. There is electric vehicle readiness, EV readiness requirements depending on the building use type. And then again, with the demand response. So smart thermostats, demand responsive water heaters, and then those renewable and grid integration credit requirements that, so another set of tables that you have to hit a certain amount of credits for in the renewable and grid integration section that we'll talk about in a second. Next slide, please. So there is a energy monitoring component for new buildings in the stretch code. So any building greater than 10,000 square feet must have some monitoring, mandatory monitoring done. There are some exceptions with such as like dwelling units and R2 occupancies. And it does require new buildings to separate the EV energy use from the rest of the building energy use. Next slide, please. So those previous measures were directly taken from the 2024 IECC. Those will be coming in 2 weeks, regardless of if you adopt the stretch code or not. These ones go above the 2024 IECC. So electric readiness. So it does require new R2 occupancy commercial buildings to include electric infrastructure for electric appliances. It does require horticultural lighting to comply with current lighting requirements for cannabis facilities. And it does require additional energy credits for buildings that do not use heat pumps for main space heating and cooling. And I guess this would be a good time to just mention that this is not an electrification ordinance by any means. It is just an electric readiness to help, building owners, homeowners down the line with expensive retrofit costs. Next slide, please. Again, mandatory measures, you meet all those, and then you choose a compliance path, much like the residential. So you have these alternative compliance pathways with the FIS and the net zero appendix. And then you have the more kind of common, the 2024 IECC, which has a prescriptive method and a simulated building performance pathway. And then the ASHRAE 90.1 2022, which just requires some additional efficiency measures to meet the CJIT targets. Next slide, please. So yeah, I think we can actually just go ahead and go to the next slide. Kind of went over all that already. So if you're choosing the ASHRAE 90.1 2022, it does just include the language that you have to have these readiness requirements in there as well, like the EV ready and electric readiness. Next slide. The prescriptive pathway compliance. So just being in compliance with sections C402 through C406, which is literally just like the recipe on how to make a building. It tells you how much insulation in the walls and U factors and fenestration U factors and all that. And then section C40A. So that is also a table with efficiency measures with credits that you have to, again, hit a certain credit threshold depending on your building type. So I think I have an example of some tables in here as well. So next slide, please. Yep. So these are the energy credit requirements by building occupancy group. I've highlighted 4A and 5A, which is the climate zones that Illinois is in. And so, yeah, depending on your building occupancy is how much credit requirements that your building will require. Next slide. The simulated performance pathway requires compliance with section C407, which kind of lays that out in more detail. The stretch code revises this pathway again to be a site energy metric instead of utility cost, again, similar to the residential. Next slide. The effects on existing buildings. So there is a requirement for substantial improvements to be electric ready and meet energy efficiency thresholds. The substantial improvement definition is defined as any repair, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or other upgrade to a building where the cost equals or exceeds 50% of the structure's market value before the improvement began. And then the additional efficiency credits for existing buildings requires additions and changes of occupancy to earn additional credits if heat pump equipment is not installed. This changes of occupancy is not like if a person moves out of a unit and then into a unit, you got to change it. It's more if the building use type has been changed, then there may be additional requirements to meet. Next slide, please. We're through this pretty quick. Okay, so we do have a Illinois Stretch Code Design and Construction Roundtable coming up. So we are very aware of the challenges that can come from a new energy code. The learning curve on how best to build a home to the new code, as well as doing it in the most cost-efficient way. This is an issue that we hear come up often. So we would like to send out an invite to builders, developer, and construction professionals to join us, Illinois Green, MEEA, and Slipstream for discussions on how to meet the new energy code and the new stretch code, and work on it together, because I know there's just some. It'd be good to get on the same page with builders and developers and construction professionals. So I invite you to sign up with the link that Katie just dropped in the chat, and would love to hear kind of your challenges, what numbers you're seeing, that type of thing, and just have a candid conversation on how best to meet the requirements of these energy codes. So I think that is the last slide. So we can go to questions.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I think I talked too fast.
No, you got it all in there, and there are some questions, so I'm glad that we have some time.
Cool.
If you want to close your deck, I think then everyone can see us a little bit better for questions. Then you guys might be able to see the chat as well. So for anyone that still has some questions, please put them in the Q&A. I can see them all easier there than the chat discussion. And just a reminder quickly that we will be sending out a PDF of the deck, as well as a recording of today's presentation, so you can share it with all of your friends that want to get updated on the stretch code process as well. And we will also send a follow-up email that has some upcoming programming related to concepts John and Zoya covered from the stretch code, if you wanted to dive deeper on any particular topics. So I have some questions, John and Zoya, but they're like long ones, so hear me out.
Sure.
All right. The first one is, how do you see enforcement of energy code in general becoming more prevalent and more consistent? This person works all over the country, and it's rare for them to see any comment or review of energy code in plan review, and inspectors reviewing anything related to on-site construction. Designing to code doesn't matter if it's not enforced in construction. So curious what you're seeing or hearing. I know you've been on a kind of a roadshow giving this presentation and talking to a lot of building code officials in different municipalities. So wondering your thoughts on this, or also feel free and punt if needed.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just really dependent, since the compliance is done at a municipality level, that it comes down to, training the inspectors, the code compliance folks, and just, making sure that they are aware of why maybe the provisions are there and the, how to check for it at the right times. So it's really municipality dependent. And I think it just comes down a lot to kind of that education component. And I know that's kind of a non-answer, but that's I got right now.
Yeah. And I did share earlier in the chat, I'll put it in here again, but some of, I think it was MEEA and Slipstream and maybe some other friends, put together some compliance checklists for both the residential and commercial versions of the stretch code, which I'm going to put here in the chat. And if you scroll down to the very bottom of this webpage, there are some checklists there as well that might be helpful, as well as some field guides related to this. So definitely enforcement is always an issue and training is always an issue, but having great training and resources and the components to help that go better is also part of the challenge and solution. So I have another question around some cost implications that we shared earlier. This might be something that we can discuss more in that roundtable that we mentioned as well. But one of the participants said that for cost implications, you shared an increase of 2% for residential. Do you have a cost implication for commercial projects that's able to be shared as well? I feel like we're working on that.
Yeah, it's just so hard with commercial because of the variance in commercial building types. With homes, it's a little more straightforward. You can kind of just go down the prescriptive pathway and chart associated costs with those. There have been no assessments done on the commercial side for this just because of the variability in commercial buildings. I haven't seen any numbers for kind of the cost implications in that.
Thank you. I have one from Joel here. It says, it sounds like the stronger requirements will require owners to hire architects and engineers that have facility to do the extra modeling and analytical work needed during design to achieve compliance for residential design in particular. And this may stretch design capabilities and costs. Any thoughts there? That sounds like another roundtable chat.
Yeah, definitely. That's the exact type of thing that we'd love to talk about at that roundtable. But yeah, I mean, there is with any code, this isn't unique to the stretch code, that there is a bit of a learning curve. But usually, within a few months, a builder has it down pretty well about what's working for them and what's not. I think this is just the way the codes are going in general, and it's not really a stretch code kind of thing where modeling is kind of more prevalent than just prescriptive at this point. So I think that's just the nature of where energy codes are heading. It's not stretch code specific.
Right. I have another question about, I'm not going to ask the one part is what municipalities have adopted the stretch code since Evanston or in the process of adopting it. I think there are several looking at it, but Evanston is the only one that has adopted the stretch code currently in Illinois, and that they adopted it earlier this year, but it went into effect starting October 1st, 2025. So it's currently in play in Evanston. But the larger question is how do municipalities use the $200,000 grant from the Illinois Climate Bank? Can they use trained technical staff or review staff to support the adoption? So just some questions on how the grant can be used.
Yeah, it's outlined on the actual, I forget the Green Climate Bank.
I'll find the link while we're
Okay.
talking.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, but it is kind of like that, kind of the administrative kind of costs associated with it. The learning about the new stretch code, maybe the new systems that have to be put in place. And I think, yeah, the parameters will outline it better than me shooting.
Yes, it can be used for staff and support and training. Oh, thanks, Jeanette. Beat me to it and put it in the chat there. But there are a number of ways that you can utilize that support. So it's not just on the implementation, but it can be on readiness to adopt, introducing the staff time needed to do that. So people should check it out. This is a quick question about the 2024 code, like the base code 2024 books being available. I don't think that they are available yet, but they should be soonish.
Yeah, not yet. On the Capital Development Board, it does say that they are expected to be released this month. We are halfway through the month now, but I imagine it should be coming soon.
Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
There are a couple more like super specific technical questions. So for some folks that have those in the Q&A, I might get back to you directly after we look some of those answers up. But did have a question here about if people can choose to comply with IECC base code in some parts of the building and stretch codes in some portion of the building. I don't know that that's, I mean, you can always make a building better if you'd like, but I think the municipality has to adopt one or the other, and that's what's
Yep.
being enforced, correct?
My answer would be no. Once the municipality has adopted the stretch code, that is the energy code, so you have to meet all of it.
Sure.
Yep.
But if you adopted 2024, you could go above and beyond and utilize pieces of the stretch code that are interesting to you to try out on your project. Anyone can go further on their individual projects voluntarily.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask maybe one more here about says, again, this is kind of a specific question, but I'm asked anyways. The 2024 IECC code monitoring is mandatory. So who are developers supposed to submit these reports to, and who keeps a record of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know fully. So yeah, it'd be the building owner would probably be submitting it, but I would actually like to know the answer to this too. So, Viral, I can try to get that information for you, but I do not know. If someone else has it, feel free to join in. But I'm not sure.
Yeah. And we can pull these questions and do kind of a Q&A document as a follow-up to this webinar today. So folks have the answers to these questions. Some of them might need to be just looked up a little bit further. But I think we've covered most of them. There's one more here at the end that I'm going to ask as our last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you see builders turning more to the performance pathway with the energy code being more prevalent, and how municipalities are continuing to be consistent in enforcing it?
Yeah, it is performance pathway for at least for residential. I'm more familiar with residential, but performance pathway is definitely the more common pathway at this point. I don't know if it has to do with how municipalities want to enforce it. Maybe I'm not understanding that second part of that question, but performance is definitely the more common pathway that builders typically use.
Awesome. Thank you. And while you were answering that as well, thank you, Dan from Slipstream, put the ways the stretch code grant can be used in the chat. So thanks for pulling that list of ways that it can be used. I think that we're gonna wrap up. I know that everyone is having their lunchtime, so we're gonna give you 5 minutes back. Thank you for all the excellent questions in the Q&A and the answers in the chat from everyone here. Thank you again to John and Zoya for sharing what's going on with codes across the Midwest, and especially the stretch code here in Illinois. I think it was really helpful for the whole audience to have a better understanding. You got a lot of thank yous in the chat, so thank you all again, and we'll follow up with more information in the follow-up email for people that want to dive in deeper and look at these more specific features of the code. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thanks, Al.